Weaving on a circle loom. This is a great project to do. You just need a round loom with an even number of pegs, and you can make an individual trivet like this, which is finished on the edge. Just weave in the tails, or you can make the bottom of a bag or a top of a hat and then continue on in the round after you've done your weaving. This is a great little project to learn. I've had people ask me about this for years, and I'm excited to present it to you today. Just remember, you need a round circle loom that's rigid and an even number of pegs, and we are ready to begin.
Welcome to Good Knit Kisses. We're all about helping you stitch your love and love your stitches.
For written instructions, please click down in the video description below, and you can get that ad-free on our Ravelry and Etsy stores, but you can get it at a discount on our website as well. And we also have right and left-handed instructions, so be sure and click down in that description to find the video that works for you. Now, for the materials, of course, you'll find that in our blog, but I'm working with a 48 peg loom that's a 5/8 inch large gauge. You can use any brand as long as it's a rigid round loom. It doesn't have to be 48 pegs. It just needs to be an even number of pegs for this to work out. And then you're going to need your yarn. You're going to need 2 to 3 strands. And if you have a different yarn and loom than I do, it could be that you need more or less strands depending upon how thick your yarn is and how wide your gauge is. So it doesn't really take much yarn for this project. It won't take more than a ball of yarn, and so you could make it and then find out if you think it's a little too thin, then you can just make it again and add in an extra strand, and you've gotten some practice already. You're also going to need a crochet hook for tight edges, and be a little bit patient because that's a little bit harder. And then at the very end, when we weave in some tails, we just have to use our loom hook a couple of times. You're also going to need a stitch marker. I've used some rubber bands, and I'm going to show you how to do the little setup on there. So you'll need 4 stitch markers or 2 of these little stretchy rubber bands, and maybe an extra one to indicate your peg 1. All right, grab your supplies and we'll begin. Let's set up our loom. And make sure you're watching the right or left-handed video tutorial to make sure you've got this right. I've got my number 1 peg marked here with this stitch marker, or you can use a hair elastic like I have. And then around the first peg and the last peg, you're going to want to put a stitch marker on both of those, or just a hair elastic that goes around both of them together. That just ties it together, and you can visually see that pair. And then you can take a straight edge like a ruler or a needle or something like that and put it between these 2 pegs, peg 1 and the last peg, and go across the loom so it hits the halfway point over here. And this is easier than counting, but you're going to be at this halfway point here midway. So if I was counting this and I have 48 pegs here, this one would be peg 24 and that would be 25. If you've got a 12 peg loom, this would be peg 12 and this would be peg 13. So that way you know where that pair is, and then you're going to put a marker here or 2 markers here, whoops, on these 2 pegs here. Okay. Also, when we first go up the middle, we're actually going to be putting our yarn straight up in between this pair of pegs, and so it's really easy to visualize. All right, go ahead and mark your loom, pause your video, and we'll get our yarn out. Let's measure out the amount of yarn you need. Everything we're going to measure out now is exactly what you need for the entire weaving part of the project, and then the rest of your ball of yarn can be used for another project. So it'll have to be tied back in if you want to continue in the round. Right now, we're going to wrap half of our loom. We're going to, in a snake-like pattern, start over here on 2 pegs, kind of a quarter of the way around, and zigzag back and forth until we reach these middle pegs. Just go a little bit beyond the halfway point. So let's go ahead and do that now. We're going to start, if you want to count it. Okay, so this is at the halfway point. We're going to leave a nice tail and work around that first peg, go around the next one up and come down, go around the next one down. Let's see what that looks like here. And then go up and around and down and continue on. So I am going to put this down so you can see it straight on your screen. We're catching every peg. halfway point. And so now you want to mark your yarn, pull this off of the loom. And then at our halfway point, now we're going to pinch it and pull, and we're going to find the end of our strand. And this is going to be one strand that is held together with 2 or more strands. So we're going to have to repeat this process, but you can just measure out the one you cut right now. So take this and cut it. Okay, so now I've got one strand made, and I need 2 or 3 times, just depends on the gauge of your loom. I'm using 3 of these super bulky 6-way yarn, and I'm going to measure this out to get 3 strands. Go ahead and measure your yarn, pause the video, and I will see you at the next point. Let's begin. We're going to grab all of our strands and put the ends together. I've got 3 for mine, and we're going to make a long tail and go ahead and make a slip knot. And then we're going to put that on our starter peg right here, right outside. Don't put it on your other pegs because it can get confusing when you're doing your weaving, and this just needs to be hooked on, or figure out how that you can leave that alone and or hold it there if you don't have a starter peg. Okay, so we're going to go in between this pair here, peg 1, and the last peg. We're going to go in between those 2 and across. We're just going straight across. Now I'm just showing you where that pair is. Now we're going to go on the outside of this one on this side and go to the opposite side. So we're just wrapping around, okay, that pair like that, and then come back down. And now we're going to wrap around the second pair, which is our last peg and our first peg. Now, you may wonder if you have to worry about these getting twisted. You can fix them later before you take this off of the loom. And I actually did that. I don't find that it's very easy to keep these straight, so I just weave it and don't worry about it. But you can try and keep it straight. It's just a little harder to do. So we're going to go around this pair here, around peg, the last peg and the first peg, and then go straight up, and we're going to go on this side of that pair of pegs. So we're going to go around that next peg, and we're going to go under. Now this is how it all repeats. Every round around, every weaving pattern goes the same way. Once you come up to the top, you're going to go underneath that first set of strings. So you're going to go under all 3 of them, or however many you have, over the next one, and then place on that last peg. Okay, when we come back up, we're going to go under the very first one, over the next, and then under the next, and that's how it repeats. So we're going to pull our yarn down and place it on the next peg down here outside this pair that we started with. Okay, and you don't need to pull these snug and tight. It'll overstretch your yarn. Just nice and loose where they're about the same tension. And then go around this peg here on the opposite side of that pair. Okay, so we're just going to the outside, the next one that's free, and go straight up, and then hook it around that next peg on the outside. Okay, here's our repeat. We're going under that set of strands, over the next set, under the next set, and over the last, and place. And then we're going to go down and place straight across. And if you find that it's twisted here, you can untwist it as you see fit, and then pull across and place on the next empty peg, and then go up to repeat. So I just bring my yarn around so it makes it easier. I pull straight up and place on the next empty peg, and we're going to go under, over, under, over, under, and over, and place. And come down and place, and continue. I'm going to continue doing this and just speed it up. Okay, so I'm here now, and I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 empty pegs on this side over here. I've wrapped this very next one, and you can see that it's tighter over here. This is where you really have to pay attention. If you don't go under the right spot, you're going to have something like this example here where it just wasn't wrapped quite right, and then you're going to have some loops at the end. So we don't want anything like that. We want this all woven in correctly. So we're going to pull this back. It's okay. Pull this back, and you can see that the next strand to go underneath is this one here, because this one is the one you just are weaving with. So we're going to go under this next one and pull up and make sure you've got all 3 strands, and you're going under those there. So I've got 1, 2, but look, I'm missing 1. So let's come back up, and I must have not grabbed it. So let's go here, go under here, and I've got all 3 strands. And once you get past the first few, it's easier to go through these, but it's harder to see those. I don't want to call it a corner, but really on this end over here. So continue on. Okay, we're down at the opposite side, and I've got this last part here to do. We're going to go underneath there. Make sure you're pulling back and see it. Make sure to place it on that next peg and come down to the next one. There we go. And towards the end here, you may have seen when I sped up the video that I do flip around this this weave part and the warp, which is up and down. I don't really worry about that so much, and I'll kind of move those around later and get them flattened. But for now, I'll just go around this stitch here, and now I have 4 left. I'm going to go up to this 4th one here, go around. And now I need to weave again. So this is a tighter spot. So I'm going to pull back and see these 3 strands that I need to go under. And it's going to get tighter. And when it does, you can pull out your crochet hook to help you. Again, make sure you are pulling up all 3 strands or going under all 3 strands. Like that. Okay, we're at the opposite end. I made sure to go underneath that one. Now place. Okay, I just placed on this 4th one. Now I have 3 left. I'm going to come down and miss these 2 and around this one here. Okay. Okay, I've got 3 left on this side. We're going to go around this 3rd one, behind the middle one, and around this next one here and up. Okay, I have my crochet hook, and I've put it on this peg here. We only have 1 peg that's not wrapped, so this one's going to be tighter. And we need to go underneath the right peg, or the correct peg. I'm just looping this around so I can find it. So when I pull back, you can see here, this is where I need to go underneath. So I'm going to put my hook underneath there. Okay. And then come up. So you may have to make sure you're not grabbing that extra strand. So make sure that you've got 3 strands on here. 1, 2, 3, and I'm not coming through any of this. Okay, and now I'm going to wrap this yarn around my hook and come down underneath that loop. And we're just gonna pull that so I've got some more room. And then we can go under the next one. If you can't get your fingers in here and pull through, you can use the crochet hook here. All right, I'm gonna speed this up. Okay, so we're down at the other end. I have 3 strands that I need to work with, and I'm going to go over this first one and under the second to last, and then we leave this other one alone. So make sure you're getting all 3 strands on this second to last. 1, 2, 3, and go underneath. Use your hook if you need. Go ahead and pull that through. We're making sure that we're not catching any other pegs here. And then we're going to come around both pegs, okay? So come around both pegs, and we're going to be weaving back through here, and we're going to have a strand come out this side, and we'll show you how in the end how to loop this around and make this not just one little loop here. So don't forget watching the end of the video. All right. Okay, there we go. We're going to pull it around so we have a little pocket here to put one more strand through the middle. To see how these can't be together, it's just going to be one big loop. So we need to go around this very last peg, just around this other side. I'm going to do what we did last time. This is the hardest part. So the hardest part is trying to get in there in that very tight spot. So we're just going to wrap that yarn around like I did before so I can get to my strand. Okay, so we wrapped it around our peg, and we have these strands that are going over and over, and this next one's under. So this is from this last round. And then the very next strand to work with is not this one that's on top, but this one back here. So we're going to go under that. So if you'll take your hook, go all the way under that, all the strands, go around and loop it around, and then pull through. And pull through all of those loops, all that strand. There we go. Okay, so that one is now woven in the very end here, so you won't see any little loops on this side. And now we just need to weave over, under, pull it through the other side. So it's still very tight. Make sure you're still at the right loop that you're going to look at. So the next strand is this one. So you're going to go over the top of that, and you need to go under this next one here. So underneath here, and that one's over. So we can use our tool, our crochet hook, and wrap around and pull it down and underneath that loop, and pull all the way through, or you can just continue to use this little loop here. So you can go underneath the next set and loop it through and pull. If you have a large-eyed tapestry needle that can feed in all of these strands, then you can pull it through that way. Or you can, like if you're using a tapestry needle, you can just pull this all the way through, put on your large-eyed tapestry needle and do it through. So whatever works for you. Let's go ahead and do that, and I'll speed up the video. All right, I'm down at this end down here, and I have 3 strands left, and I'm going to go underneath this second to last one. So I'm going to stick my crochet hook on top of this last set of loops, underneath the next, come up and go over, and then wrap around, twist and pull it down, and come up. There we go. Okay, so now you have finished that. You can go ahead and loop around this peg here. We're going to go around this peg here, and we're going to pull up like if we're going to purl. So between these 2 strands, see how there's like a loop around these 2 pegs? We're going to go take our loom tool and go down underneath all 3 of those and pull up all 3 of these strands. You could put your tool against the groove of your peg and then pull through and purl and pull through the whole thing. And so now this one can be taken off the loom right here. You don't have to do that right now, but you can. So that part's done. And then let's come over here, and we're going to pull off of our slip knot, pull off of our anchor. And pull that out, and you now have one over here. And so you're going to go on top and go as if to knit the traditional knit stitch. So we're going to wrap around peg 1 and then go underneath those strands, and then take the ones on top and pull down, and then pull through as if you're doing a traditional knit stitch on the knitting loom, and pull all the way through. Look at that. And so now these are all, they have like a nice woven edge here, and you can actually take this off of the loom now. And if you go around to the other side, you're going to notice that this one has a double here, but if you take it off, you'll notice that it works out. So just pull that off there, and you'll notice that this piece is just a continuous amount around here. It's totally fine on the weaving, and you're good to go. So before you pull this off, you can make it even, and I'm going to go ahead and even that out now. And you can just use your your loom tool, and you know, stretch this out and make it a little bit more even, pulling down on your weave. And as you do that, you can see if you need to twist any of these strands to make them flat looking, like this one right here. I'll just twist that over. I like all these flat, and then I'll twist these, figure out that yarn was on the other side, and kind of just pinch and flip it over. It may be harder on thinner strands of yarn. It may not be noticeable on the thinner strands, the less bulky yarns. I like to go ahead and do it on here just because I can, and I like the look of it being flat. It doesn't have to be perfect, but it'll look more tidy. Tidy is probably the better word. So tidy yours up. Keep going. And then you can take yours off of the loom. If you are going to be knitting with this and work on a hat or something like that, you can keep these on the loom. So like I've got my loop here, and then I had a loop over here, I can keep that here and then place my tail on the inside. Go ahead and cut it if it's just a little extra long. So do that. And then on the opposite side, you can actually just put that back on. It's totally fine. So you can use that for knitting your other stitches to continue on in a project in the round. So I hope that you enjoyed our tutorial today, and I want to show you the samples. This was the 2-strand method here, and you can see how it's a little bit thinner. I can kind of see through it a little bit. You can see that. And then this is a 3-strand right here, just like the one we just wove. So you just need to weave in your ends and you'll be done. You can weave 2 around one side and 1 around this side, and then take 2 on this side and do the 1 this way, and then that way you even out where you have your yarn. You could weave them back in through a few choice ones like this, but it might be better along the edges, and this would make you a nice little trivet project. Thank you so much for joining me today at Good Knit Kisses. Have a great day and happy knitting, crochet, and weaving. Bye everyone.
Thanks for joining us today, where we help you stitch your love and love your stitches. See you again soon.